why is trust so important, right? We always hear about it. Sellers need to cultivate trust. And the bottom line is that in every situation, not just in business, people buy from people that they trust.
Welcome to the Win Loss Show, where we discuss why B2B companies like yours win and lose deals. Here at Closed, we've conducted tens of thousands of buyer interviews for hundreds of different companies, and we've uncovered what drives your prospects and customers to buy, not buy, or even churn. In each episode, we'll explore things you can do to help you identify and double down on your strengths, improve your weaknesses, and ultimately create more revenue.
Welcome to another episode. I'm Trenton Rumpf, the head of marketing at Closed, and joining me today is Matt Flug, an associate evangelist at Outreach. Matt, welcome to the show.
Awesome. It's great to be here, Trenton. Really excited to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, me too. When we have been thinking about what does our win-loss data tell us about the sales process and the sales experience, one of the first companies I thought of about the sales process was Outreach. Like, let's go get somebody from Outreach who's deep in that world and is thinking about how to solve some of the problems we're seeing and have them lay out their knowledge for us, essentially. So, but before we start there, Matt, I got to know, what in the world is an associate evangelist?
I definitely, I've given this 1,000 times, probably to my family alone. So it's a little bit of a unique title for sure, but really all it means is that the evangelist team here at Outreach conducts research in B2B sales. We survey buyers, we survey sellers, we see what the trends are. We try to predict where the market's going, and we give Outreach an independent point of view on the market. To a little segue here to help build trust with our buyers,
Yeah,
that we know what we're talking about, and we have their best interests at heart.
that's cool. What kind of a background does somebody have to become an associate evangelist?
Absolutely. So I do a lot. We do a lot of research. I have a degree in political science, and I went to go work for the Massachusetts government right out of college. Did a bunch of research there. Probably not the same type of research, but research on the same.
Hmm.
And after that, I went to Forrester, for those of you who know Forrester Research,
Hmm.
and spent 4 years there doing B2B sales research.
Awesome.
Um, my boss was a fantastic analyst called named Mary Shea,
Mhm.
and she went to Outreach and took me with her to head up our evangelist team and do research for B2B sales, and again provide that point of view for Outreach.
Cool. Those are the best bosses. They bring people along for opportunities, right?
Yep. Yep.
So, where do you guys live at Outreach? Are you in the marketing team? Is this like a research team separate
So
from everybody? Where do you live?
so we report up to the CRO and enablement, actually,
Oh, cool.
sales enablement.
Yeah.
Um, but we're kind of in a gray area. We play with everyone. We play with
Hmm.
marketing, we play with enablement, we play with sales. Everyone, I'll go in and help our account executives with deals. Just kind of provide a different voice. Yesterday, I had an account executive reach out to me. He's working a deal, and he's like, "Hey, can you just send an email about like some data points and some like research that you've written about tech consolidation?" So jumped in, sent an email over, try to help move that deal along. And for marketing, we help in terms of our marketing content. We write blogs. They'll try to say, hey, we really need something on this Forrester wave that's coming out. So they'll ask us, because we have experience writing, to,
Yeah.
write the marketing blog for the Forrester wave.
That's awesome. That's actually really, really thoughtful. That's cool.
Yeah.
So, the reason I reached out to you guys is we have a lot of data. We've been interviewing thousands of buyers, right? And in those interviews, we always ask about the sales experience. How did the sales experience play into your decision making process, whether you bought or didn't buy, right? And we see a lot of things that come out of that. Buyers will talk to us about the sales rep's knowledge and expertise. Like, were they a true expert in this and they actually know how to solve my problem? They will talk about their empathy, their communication style. Like, do they really understand my world? enough to help me with this problem or not? And do they communicate that well and clearly? Do they clearly communicate the value, the ROI, that kind of stuff? Do they effectively manage processes? And then the other one that you and I kind of will dive into today is like trust and professionalism. So, how do sales reps in their process and in their outreach in the whole buyer's journey cultivate that trust in a professional way and prove to buyers that they know how to help them with their issues, right?
Yep.
So I reached out to Mary, your boss, actually, and she said Matt would be incredible about this. We actually just did a bunch of research on it, and I got really amped because I was like, "That's so cool." We have clients right now that are running into these problems. We have we're seeing it in the market ourselves, and what the purpose of this podcast is if anyone is experiencing these problems or seeing these problems, I want them to find resources or tools that can actually help them solve them, right? So, and
Yep.
your research is in that same vein. So let's talk about that. So I was told Outreach did a bunch of research around this right now. So tell me what that means.
Yeah, so we've got two surveys that we recently ran. One of them we surveyed B2B buyers to try to get a sense of, like you said, the buying journey, what they value in the buying journey, what traits they value, what would make them reconsider purchases, what would make them more likely to make a purchase.
Hmm.
And I think all of those things kind of, all those things put together, that's what builds trust, right?
Hmm.
So it's a combination of all the things that happen throughout the buyer journey. And that's really what cultivates and builds trust or diminishes it and erodes it.
Yeah.
Um, the other survey we ran was of B2B sellers and managers. So I think we had about 1,200 B2B sellers and managers, and we surveyed them. It was a lot about what motivates them to, work harder, to stay at their job, to leave a job, to take another job. Um, and we really got some interesting data points there on the organizational level and how what an organization does can help build trust with the buyer and how that helps the seller.
That's
So I
awesome.
thought that was some really cool stuff that I'm excited to share today.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me a little bit more when you say B2B buyer. Are you talking about mostly software? Is it a good mix of all B2B types?
Yeah,
That's a big
so
world. That's a big world, right?
it is a big world.
Yeah,
And obviously software buyers, SaaS buyers are going to think differently than like a warehouse buyer, right?
sure. Yeah.
We surveyed everyone. Most of it was SaaS.
Hmm.
Also in the selling survey as well. But we did not discriminate against industries. I think a majority of them were SaaS, but
Awesome. So let's dive into some of the things you guys found. I'll
yeah.
let you kind of lead that. I don't have the data in front of me, so I'd love you be the guide here. You tell us what you found.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you all reached out to me and said you wanted to talk about trust, I kind of started thinking about, you know, why is trust so important, right? We always hear about it. Sellers need to cultivate trust. And the bottom line is that in every situation, not just in business, people buy from people that they trust.
Mhm.
If I don't want to alienate people, but if you're a Mac person, right, you're going to buy a Mac even if there's a laptop out there that has the same capabilities and is a fraction of the price because you trust and know that it'll meet your needs and you trust its virus protection, whatever. You trust the Mac brand, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And I think when you look at a B2B purchase, there's so much more on the line and trust is so much more important, right? If you buy a Mac and you don't like it, you just wasted a lot of money. And don't get me wrong, that's definitely important, right?
Mhm.
But if you get a business decision wrong, and I don't want to scare any first-time buyers, but that could really be it could propel your career and it could also derail it. So it's a really emotional process and you want to buy from someone that you know has your best interest in mind. You want to buy from someone who you know is not thinking about their commission, but is thinking about how they're going to help you solve your problems and get ahead in your career because that's ultimately what's going to be happening, right? When you make a
Yeah.
purchasing decision. So
Yeah,
that was
that's an
kind of
interesting
the
yeah, that's
first
an
thing.
interesting point that we sometimes see is sometimes buying decisions are in B2B. Uh, are influenced by that personal factor of, is my career on the line? Is this going to be a good thing? Because sometimes we believe the buyer has the company's best interest at heart. And they're
Yeah.
thinking, what's the best tool for the company? What's the best tool for my team? What's the best tool for ROI? All those things. Sometimes we actually hear from buyers that say, I actually considered this tool because I've wanted to learn more about it so that I can break into that career path, or that I can use the knowledge I would gain from that tool to get the next promotion or whatever it is. It's like very actual selfish reason to
Yeah.
buy the tool. And usually it's not the main driver of the buying decision, but it's influencing it. It's like, okay, I need this to actually do the job so I don't just get fired.
Yeah, and I mean, even if that's not the motivation, which I'm sure in a lot of cases it is, right? Even if that's
Yeah.
not the motivation, if somebody buys outreach, right? And I'm not saying
Yep.
it's gonna do this, but if somebody buys outreach and their ROI increases X amount, and then the CEO of the company is like, "Hey, who made this decision?"
Yeah.
You're gonna raise your hand, and it's probably gonna be good for you in your career. And
I would.
alternatively, if it didn't
Yeah.
work out, it's
Right.
not gonna be good.
It might not be so great. Exactly. And I totally agree with you. Buyers want sales reps that they can trust will help them make the right decision. Especially more junior buyers. They're not practiced at it. They don't know exactly how to do it. They don't know how to make the business case internally. They rely a lot on a very, very experienced professional salesperson to create an effective process to help them sell it internally, and to make the business case for it, because they maybe don't know how to do that. You know what I mean?
That's an
Yeah,
awesome point.
yeah.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, but
No, it's great.
I think that's a huge area today where sellers can add value. In our research, we've seen that buyers are really embracing a self sufficient model of educating themselves on the
Hmm.
market that they're buying in.
Hmm.
So the days of a seller kind of being a walking brochure of the product and the industry are kind of over, right?
Yeah.
A buyer comes to the first conversation with so much information. They have G2, they have review sites, they have analysts like Gartner and Forrester, um, that are all telling them what they should do, right? They've got all this
Hmm.
information. So, where does a seller add value now? Because that used to be the seller's job.
Right.
So, if you can create a business case, if you could demonstrate that ROI, we have reps here that really do a great job of at outreach of kind of looking and under, understanding their buyer's business and providing just an outside point of view. Hey, this is what you do well. This is what you don't do well. And I think this is where you could fix it. Maybe not even necessarily with outreach, right?
Mhm.
We could identify something else in their marketing department or um, in their HR, how they hire people, right?
Mhm.
And if you could fix a problem for an organization, I think that's really how you build trust.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing to think about when you were talking about the old days of sales. I've talked to a couple of guys that have had stellar sales careers, and they started with like IBM back in like the 80s, and they were literally going down Wall Street with a briefcase, and they would hop in a payphone and call the guy's office, but they could see the guy's office from the street. And they'd be calling the payphone and could see if he would pick the phone up or not. And I'm like, those days are totally different now. And it's almost like sales and marketing have tried really, really hard and been successful at creating very efficient delivery methods of educating markets, like the internet or through email, all these different distribution methods we have now, where it's not a sales rep carrying this brochure that a marketer created anymore, right?
Yep.
And now they're almost like the victim of, we got so good at distributing and communicating that now the buyer doesn't even want to talk to us anymore. Like they want to do it all by themselves. So that's a very interesting game to play. Is okay, marketing does so much now with websites, social content like this, educating and getting the buyers like 60% of the way there. And even sales reps are doing that too before they even know the person's considering the purchase. So talk to me about some of the data you guys might have about that last 40% of the deal process. Like how does a buyer come into that world and create this trust? Or what are some things that you guys saw that they do that erodes the trust?
Yeah, so I mean, we always talk about consultative selling. We brought it up a couple times already in this conversation, and I think that's where it really starts, right? In our recent survey of buyers, 78%, so almost 8 out of 10, right? 78% of buyers said that they would be more likely or extremely more likely to make a purchase if the selling experience was consultative in its nature.
Mm,
So, if the buyer or the seller was actively helping to solve problems.
mhm,
Um, we have a rep here at Outreach, one of our top performing reps, if not the top performing. And what he does every week, he'll identify some problems of a buyer of his, right? And he'll go through thought leadership. He'll go through Forrester, he'll go through Gartner, all the others out there,
mhm.
maybe Harvard Business Review, and he'll collate that information and with a little summary of why it pertains to a specific problem that his buyer is trying to solve. And he'll send it off
Interesting.
to them and he'll say, "Hey, I know you're super busy. You don't have time to do this. So I wanted to send this over." It may not have anything to do with outreach, it may not even
Mhm,
have anything to do with the sales process,
mhm,
but it builds that trust and it shows not only does it keep outreach top of mind, right? But it also shows that, hey, I've got your back. I'm
mhm,
I'm here to help you. Um, even if it's not outreach. And then in terms of traits of a seller, active listening, when we surveyed buyers, that was far and away the number one trait of a seller. And I'm not
mm,
here to sell outreach, but we do have a really cool feature in our outreach Kaya product that tracks talk time and tells a seller
mhm,
to stop talking if they're
mm.
talking too much. Um,
I didn't know that. Like, in a demo or something, it literally
yep,
chimes and is like,
it'll
"Shut
like
up."
it'll be like a little note that's like, "Hey, you're talking 60% of the time. You should do more time listening."
Wow.
Um,
Is it kind? Like, does it tell the sales rep in a nice way, or is it kinda
yeah,
like,
yeah. It's
"Okay,
not like, "Hey,"
hey,
it
knock
is
it off."
nice
Yeah.
about it. It's polite.
Okay. I didn't realize that. That's cool. That's an
The AI
interesting
has
tool.
not gotten out of control yet.
Yeah, that's right,
Um,
that's right. I was just thinking about the consultative thing yesterday. I'm a buyer, and I'm in a process right now thinking about how to up level our customer marketing efforts. And I've had some vendors in the space with different solutions and different ideas of how, their solutions or their ideas of how I can do that more. And I've expressed with some of them more than others about like where we're at, and they have a pretty good view of the initiatives I need to do. Um, the team that I have, like they've done pretty good discovery, right?
yep,
And I've been just getting pulled away and buried on some other priorities, like that happens to every single buyer. You know what I mean?
yep,
And I was thinking about this yesterday. I thought if that seller from that company reached out to me in that way and they said, "Hey, I know you're trying to do these things. I know we've shown you our solution and how it can help, but here's five other things like best practices that I went and researched for you that you should also be thinking about." Whether or not their tool really like does that specific thing. But if they're just, I know you're trying to do customer marketing better. Here are five things you should be thinking about or that you could do right now. And we're always here for you. Like our tool will help you and support you as well. Right. And I literally yesterday was like, if she sent me that right now, I really think it would get the ball rolling again.
yeah. I mean,
But
there's a reason
yeah,
why that person is the top, one of the top performing
yeah,
reps at our
yeah.
company.
And it's not like I'm trying to be a bad buyer and like waiting for that person to prove themselves. I just am so stacked with other priorities. I'm like, I can't focus on that yet. Right.
Yep.
But I think that could help the process for sure.
Yeah, and
And
it
yeah.
it's my boss Mary Shea talks about it, and she calls it, trying to take money out of the ATM before you have the money in there, right? Trying to force a
That's
demo.
great.
Yeah, trying to force
Yeah.
a demo, trying to force, the next sales call, right? Before
Hmm.
you've demonstrated that like your value, that you really have their back. I get emails and LinkedIn messages all the time. It's about, "Hey Matt, come check out our product." I'm like, "You clearly haven't done any research because I'm not the
Yeah.
buyer here."
Right.
um,
Yeah.
so I just research buyers. I'm not the buyer. So, um, it really trying to do that before you've actually, put in the work and done the value. It's taking money out of the ATM before you have it.
Yeah, I love that. You gotta make those deposits before you make a transaction, right?
Yep.
That's great. I cut you off when you were about to go into another
Yeah.
point
So,
here.
traits that buyers value in sellers. Active listening was far and away the number one that we found among buyers. Tech savvy, a buyer that can really use technology to make an efficient sales process. Right. I think
Mhm,
efficiency is the name of the game now. Um, Forrester and Gartner, and we've done research about how many more people are involved in buyer processes right now.
mhm,
I think the average number is 11 according to Gartner, and that can get up to 20. Um, the number of interactions needed to close a deal is going up. So if you can really use tech to smooth out that process, because obviously with more people involved, it's more bumpy, more challenges, it becomes less efficient, takes longer.
mhm.
Um, so really being able to master technology, especially in our post-COVID world, where what's more than half of people are working remotely. I'm in my home office right now.
Yep.
If you can master tech to make the process more efficient, that's really a huge thing. And then there's a bunch of things that sellers can do. I gave the real life example. I really truly believe that organizations need to help cultivate that trust, and they need to help their sellers, right? If somebody trusts me, but they think my organization isn't great, they're not going to buy from me. It doesn't matter. So we actually have data from buyers. Almost three quarters, 74% of B2B buyers said that they would reconsider a purchase if the selling team did not reflect the world around them, right?
Mm,
So we just had a big women in sales event in Napa hosted by Outreach. Um, and I think one of the data points that my boss Mary presented was less than a third of B2B sellers are women, but women make up more than half of the population.
mhm.
So 70, almost three quarters of buyers are going to reconsider a purchase if the sales team doesn't reflect the world around them. I think that's
Wow.
really striking. And I'm going to let you hop in here, Trent, but
Yeah.
those numbers get even the number gets even bigger when you just cut it by millennial and Gen Z, and those are the people
Mm,
that are taking over. So
mhm.
this is only going to get more important.
That's fascinating. I think that's probably the hardest stat I've seen that shows diversity matching up to ROI in a very, very concrete way. Because you hear about that, like diversity of thought, diversity of background can create more ideas, can create more ROI, can create better, effective business processes. But that stat is actually super impactful. That's really interesting. And I don't think I've ever been in a company that's been more thoughtful about that in terms of, okay, our buyer persona mix, like what is that person's life like? What does that person's world look like you're saying?
Yep.
And are we in line with that? Are we like totally different than that? Or like how do we match up with that? And I think it kind of comes back down to the data point that we see where seller's empathy of a buyer matters so much. Can you really put yourself in that person's shoes and understand what their world looks like to the level that they fully trust you know how to solve and help them with their problem?
Yeah.
Right. And I could for sure see that in our data if we were asking the question maybe in the kind of the way you guys are of if that person if they don't reflect that empathy back to me and I don't feel like they understand my world, I'm going to rate them very low on empathy and communication. Like I'm not going to believe they actually get it and get where I'm coming from.
Yep.
That's a fascinating stat. Um, that should be thrown up in a lot of places that are talking about diversity right now for
Yeah.
sure.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
outside of diversity, it's also values, right? We see
Yeah.
a bunch of, especially now today, it's if a company doesn't have values that align with your own in your consumer life, right?
Hmm.
You're probably going to buy from the company that has values that align with your own. And in a survey of our selling survey of 1,200 B2B sellers and managers, 79% of the sellers and managers said that their company taking a stance on social issues generally had a positive effect. They could have chosen negative, neutral, no effect. 79% chose positive effect. So it's not bleeding into the B2B world. It's
Hmm.
in the B2B world now. Um,
Yeah. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
yeah.
We we have a client that I won't talk too much specifically about, but their whole mission is about a specific issue with society. And it's around like mental health and anxiety and things like that. And one of their core decision drivers, we call them, like the reasons people buy this company, is their mission. Like it's in their top 5 of reasons people buy this company. Their software and their tool is their mission is not just the way they try to solve the problem, but actually that their mission is that problem is a key decision driver among their buyers. And so that definitely speaks to me there too. Awesome, Matt. Any other knowledge bombs you want to throw our way?
I would just say that, you know, obviously, I think the company has a huge role to play, right? They need to help their sellers cultivate that trust. If buyers don't trust the company, they're not going to buy from the seller.
Yeah.
Obviously, consultative selling, huge. And that example I gave of our top performer, I think one key thing is when he sends that email with all that collated research and the summaries of why it pertains, there's no ask. There's no, hey,
Mm,
when can I talk to you next? Hey, can we demo this for you?
mm,
It's just like, hey, here's this research. Have a great day. Have a great weekend.
mhm,
Um, and I see that in my real life, not even in a sales thing. Funny story, when I started at Outreach, I sent an email to our then CRO, and I was like, hey, thanks so much for the opportunity. Really excited to help Outreach, grow and do what an evangelist does, do research
mhm.
and all this stuff. I didn't ask to have coffee. I didn't ask to have lunch. My dad was like, "How come you didn't ask to meet with her? It could have been like really valuable for you."
Yeah.
And I was like, she's a CRO. She has so much on her plate. She doesn't need to be meeting with every new hire that comes in, right? A week later, my boss Mary, who at the time reported up to our CRO, said, our CRO said to me in our one-on-one that was the best email she got all week because you didn't ask her for anything. It was just a nice, kind, pleasant email where you didn't ask her for anything.
Mm,
Um, and that's not a selling example, but that carries over. And I think the fact that our seller who sends that email with all the research doesn't ask for anything, that's probably the key part of it.
yeah.
He doesn't want anything. He just wants to help the buyer, right?
Right. Yeah, I know a sales leader that talks about that, and he calls it, "Are you putting sandbags on my back or taking sandbags off my back?"
Yep.
And I think that's a cool way to think about it too, and I think sellers should be doing that. Like, you're literally trying to help this buyer, and you wanna get a sale out of it, but the only way that's gonna happen is if they feel like you're helping them, I think,
Yeah.
solve the problem, and in this consultative approach, solving the problem just beyond what your solution can do, but actually being in their world and helping them solve it in other ways. And I
Yeah.
love what you said about a company needs to support the sales team and building that trust. We call that one of our decision drivers is brand strength and reputation. So, and we actually focus on that harder on like the marketing side. And when we ask people about marketing, it's less, hey, which ad caught your attention or where did they hear about you? We do ask that stuff, but we're more focused on how did the brand strength and reputation play into the deal? And that always comes up. Do they trust the brand? Do they have affinity to the brand? And it does drive decisions
Oh, I'm sure.
big time.
I'm
Yeah.
sure.
But yeah.
I want to be mindful of time, but just one more thing because I could wax poetic about this stuff, right? Um, you look at my job, you look at my boss Mary's job. Obviously, an example of kind of companies trying to build trust in a different way than diversity, which is very important. Don't get me wrong, in values, but we're trying to have an independent view that says, "Hey, we have a stance on this. It's rooted in research, and that's why you should trust us." Right?
Hmm.
We have a value consulting team at Outreach that really dives into our potential buyers' processes, their tech, everything in their organization. and tries to identify gaps that maybe not that we could close, but that they could close. And
Hmm.
maybe it's something that we can help them with. Maybe it's something else. But we call it sales execution gap, right? A combination of gaps that prevent an organization from reaching their full potential, right? And
Hmm.
we offer that service as part of the sales process. If they went to IBM or KPMG or Deloitte, you're talking probably tens of thousands of dollars, right? And so the value isn't just in the monetary, though. It's like, hey, we're trying to help you solve your problems. If we can do that with our product, great. But here are the problems that you need to solve also
That's
outside of
awesome.
outreach. Um,
That's
so
cool. I didn't realize you guys offer that service as well.
yeah, just another example of a company helping their sellers build trust, right? So
Yeah, exactly. Well, Matt, this has been a really cool conversation. I was excited to dive into this data when you guys told me about it. I'm super glad you joined, and I've been a fan of outreach since my SDR days when it was. I remember we didn't have outreach when I was an SDR, and people had just started talking about it. Have you seen this tool? It like totally automates all your cadences and sequence, all that. And I was like, that won't work. Like that's no, you can't do that. You got to personalize. You got to do it. And now I'm like, man, I don't know how I did that job without a tool like that. So, Matt, it's been a great time talking with you. I
likewise.
look forward to seeing more research from you guys. I'm going to follow it closely now and pay attention and join in on that conversation that you're having around it. If anybody wants to chat with you, get a hold of you, what's a good place, Matt? Like LinkedIn or where
Yeah.
you living?
LinkedIn, Matthew, Matthew, Flug, Flug.
Cool.
You can find me there. We're posting about our research constantly. And Trent, this was a great conversation. Had a lot of fun. Anytime you want me back, I'm happy to just pour over all the stats we have with you because this was a lot of fun.
Cool. Matt, thanks so much. Until next time, talk to you later.
Bye bye.
Thanks for tuning into today's episode. If you want to learn more about how you can win more by identifying and strengthening your weakest decision drivers, check out closed.com. That's CLOZD.com.